Hyunwoo Kim stood in the center of the great assembly hall feeling very small. Around him, representatives from 847 worlds sat in floating chairs that moved through the air like silver bubbles. Each alien species looked different. Some had scales that changed colors. Others had tentacles instead of arms. A few looked like walking crystals that made musical sounds when they moved. The hall was so big that Hyunwoo could not see the far walls. Lights floated overhead like tiny stars. The air smelled like flowers from a dozen different planets, but none of this beauty could hide what was happening today. The Galactic Council was angry with humanity, and they wanted Earth gone. Hyunwoo had been Earth's voice in this place for 5 years. He spoke for all humans across the galaxy. It was not an easy job. The other species had been here for thousands of years. They knew all the rules and old agreements. Humans were new. They asked too many questions. They wanted to change things that had stayed the same for a very long time. The council leader was a tall being called Vorthka. He had purple skin and 4 arms. His voice sounded like thunder when he spoke. "Ambassador Kim," he said, "you have brought serious claims against 3 council members. You say they have broken our laws. You say they have stolen from weaker worlds." Hyunwoo held up a small device. Inside it were records, pictures, and videos. Captain Boram Lee had spent 2 years collecting this proof. She was one of the best officers in the Earth Defense Force. Her ships had visited dozens of worlds that were not part of the council yet. What she found there made her sick. "Yes, council leader," Hyunwoo said. His voice was steady, but his heart was beating fast.
Captain Lee found mines on 7 different worlds.
The people there work like slaves. They dig for rare metals day and night. They get almost no food. Many die young. The metals go to ships owned by the Kalathi, the Drakmor, and the Zentari. The 3 species he named were some of the oldest in the council. They had been members since the beginning. They had more power than most others. When Hyunwoo spoke their names, angry sounds came from their sections of the hall. A Kalathi representative stood up. His body looked like a giant insect with golden wings. "These are lies," he clicked. "Humans have no right to visit those worlds. They are not part of the council. We were helping them learn to mine properly." "Helping them?" Hyunwoo asked. He pressed a button on his device. A big screen appeared in the air above the hall. It showed a video that Captain Lee had taken. Children with thin arms and dirty faces worked in dark tunnels. Their hands were bleeding. They moved slowly like they had no strength left. "These children work 16 hours every day," Hyunwoo said. "They get 1 small bowl of food. When they get too sick to work, you leave them to die. You take millions of tons of metals worth more money than these people will see in their whole lives. You give them nothing back." The hall became very quiet. Many of the council members looked uncomfortable. Some species had never seen what was in the video. Others looked away like they already knew but did not want to remember. But not everyone was upset by what they saw. The Drakmor representative laughed. He was a large being covered in black fur with red eyes. "So what?" he growled. "These worlds are primitive. They cannot use these metals themselves. We take the metals and use them to build ships and cities. This helps the whole galaxy grow stronger." "By making children work until they die?" Hyunwoo asked. "They are not our children," the Zentari representative said. She looked like a tall tree with many arms that moved like branches in wind. "They are not even council members. We have no duty to them." Hyunwoo felt anger grow in his chest. This was exactly why humans had problems with the council. The old species thought they were better than everyone else. They made rules that helped themselves and hurt weaker people. "The council laws say that all thinking beings have rights," Hyunwoo said. "It does not matter if they are council members or not. You have broken these laws. You have hurt innocent people for profit." Vorthka raised one of his 4 hands. "Ambassador Kim, your claims are noted. We will investigate them properly." But Hyunwoo knew what that meant. The council would form a committee. The committee would meet for many months. They would write reports that no one would read. In the end, nothing would change. The children in the mines would keep working until they died. "With respect, council leader," Hyunwoo said, "we need action now, not another investigation. People are dying while we talk." The hall filled with angry sounds. Representatives from different species made noise by clicking, roaring, humming, or flashing lights. Most of them were upset with Hyunwoo, not with the evidence he had shown. "Humans always want a rush," called out a representative who looked like a floating jellyfish. "They have been in the council for only 50 years. They do not understand how things work here. Maybe that is good, Hyunwoo said. Maybe someone who does not understand the old ways can see what is wrong with them. That made the noise even louder. Fourthka used a device that made a sound like a bell to make everyone quiet. Ambassador Kim, he said, you have shown disrespect for council traditions. You have made claims without proper proof. You have refused to follow correct procedures. The council will now vote on your membership. Hyunwoo felt cold. This was not supposed to happen. He had come here to report crimes and ask for justice. Instead, humanity was on trial. The vote did not take long. Most species voted to remove humanity from the council. They said humans were too young, too aggressive, too different. They said humans did not understand galactic civilization. Only 12 species voted to keep humanity as members. The vote is complete, Fourthka announced. Earth's membership in the Galactic Council is ended. All human ships must leave council space within 30 days. All trade agreements are cancelled. All diplomatic relations are suspended. Hyunwoo stood alone in the center of the Great Hall as the other representatives filed out. Some looked sorry. Others looked happy. Most just looked relieved that the problem was solved. But as Hyunwoo walked toward the exit, he was not thinking about defeat. He was thinking about the children in the mines. The council might not care about them, but humans did. Maybe being kicked out of the council was not the end of humanity's story in space. Maybe it was just the beginning of a better one. President Woo Jin-nam sat in his office on Earth, looking at reports from across human space. The news was not good. 3 months had passed since the council kicked humanity out. Already problems were starting. The trade routes to Kepler Station were blocked by council ships. The colony on New Sol could not get the medical supplies they needed. Worst of all, the mining operation on Titan 7 had to shut down because they could not sell their metals to anyone. Admiral Taejin Park stood near the window, watching ships land at the spaceport outside. Sir, he said, we have pulled back all our ships like the council ordered, but our colonies are starting to run low on supplies. Some are talking about surrendering and asking to be put under council protection. President Nam nodded slowly. He had expected this. The council wanted humans to come crawling back, begging to be let in again. They wanted Earth to promise to behave better and never ask uncomfortable questions. What do our people think? The president asked. Most are angry, Admiral Park said. They think we should have kept quiet about those mining operations. They say we lost everything for people who are not even human. But President Nam remembered the videos that Captain Bo Ram Lee had brought back. Children working in dark holes. Families that never had enough food. People dying so that rich aliens could get richer. No, he said firmly. We did the right thing. If the council does not want us, we will make our own way. He called for a meeting with his best advisors. Dr. Minna Choi came from the research center. She was the smartest scientist on Earth and maybe in all human space. Engineer Sung Ho Yoon came from the shipyard division. He built the fastest ships in the human fleet. Commander Ji-Hai Seo came from Deep Space Command. She knew more about exploring unknown space than anyone else. Friends, President Nam said when they were all together. The council thinks we will fail without them. They think we need their technology and their trade routes to survive. I want to prove them wrong. I want to show the galaxy that humans can do better on our own. Dr. Minna Choi smiled. Mr. President, I have been waiting for you to say that. We have been copying council technology for 50 years, but we never tried to improve it because we were afraid of making them angry. Now we do not need to hold back. She showed them pictures on a big screen. Look at their faster-than-light drives. They work, but they are slow and use too much fuel. I think we can build something much better. Engineer Sung Ho Yoon leaned forward. How much better? Maybe 10 times faster, Dr. Choi said. Maybe more. The council races are old. They stopped trying to innovate because they did not need to. They had all the power already. President Nam felt hope growing in his chest. What else can we improve? Everything, Commander Ji-Hai Seo said. Council ships are built to look impressive, not to work well. Their weapons are big but not accurate. Their sensors are old and slow. We can build ships that are smaller, faster, and much more effective. Over the next few months, human science moved faster than ever before. Dr. Minna Choi worked 20 hours every day developing new technologies. She created the first human artificial intelligence that could think like a person. They called it Aria, and it could solve problems that took human scientists weeks to figure out. Engineer Sung Ho Yoon built new ship engines that used quantum tunneling instead of the old warp drives. The first test ship traveled from Earth to Alpha Centauri in just 2 days. The same trip took Council ships 2 weeks. But the biggest change came from Commander Ji-Hai Seo. Instead of following Council trade routes, she sent human ships into unexplored space. They found dozens of worlds that the Council had never contacted. Some had intelligent species that were ready for space travel, but had never heard of the Galactic Council. The first species they met were called the Corvan. They looked like large cats that walked on 2 legs and had thumbs. Their leader, Rithka, was suspicious at first. "Are you from the Council?" he asked through a translation device that Dr. Choi had built. "No," Commander Seo said. "We were kicked out. The Council did not like us asking questions about how they treat weaker species." Rithka's ears perked up with interest. "What kind of questions?" Commander Seo showed him the same videos that had gotten humanity in trouble. Rithka watched with growing anger. His fur stood up on his neck, which meant he was very upset. "This is terrible," he said. "But why do you show this to us?" "What do you want?" "We want to trade," Commander Seo said. "But not like the Council does. They take much and give little. We want to trade fairly. You give us something you have too much of. We give you something you need. Both sides win." This was very different from how the Council worked. When Council ships found new species, they offered them junior membership. This meant the new species could trade, but only on Council terms. They had to sell their resources cheap and buy Council technology at high prices. Humans offered something different. They shared their technology freely. When the Corvan needed help with farming, humans taught them how to grow more food. When humans needed rare metals for their new engines, the Corvan traded them at fair prices. Word spread quickly through unexplored space. Other species came to meet the humans. The Varek were traders who looked like lizards with copper-colored scales. They had tried to join the Council 50 years ago, but the Council said they were too primitive. The humans did not care if they were primitive. They cared that the Varek were honest and worked hard. The Etheri were even stranger. They were made of energy instead of matter, living inside crystal shells they had built for themselves. The Council had declared them too dangerous to contact. But humans found them peaceful and very smart. They could solve mathematical problems faster than any computer. Soon, humans had trade agreements with over 30 non-Council species. They built new space stations where anyone could come to trade or share information. They created the Human Trade Federation, which welcomed any species that wanted to join. Trade Minister Dongmin Ko was amazed at how fast everything grew. "Mr. President," he said, "we are making more money now than we ever did with the Council. And we are helping other species too. The Corvan life expectancy has gone up by 20 years since they started using our medical technology." President Nam was pleased, but he also worried. The Council would not be happy about losing so much trade. They would probably try to stop human expansion. His worry was right. Council ships started appearing near human trade routes. They did not attack, but they made it clear that they were watching. Some Council species sent messages warning the new species not to trust humans. But it was too late. The new species had seen what humans offered. They had tasted freedom and fair trade. When Council ships came to their worlds with demands and threats, the new species told them to go away. On Earth, President Nam read reports about these confrontations with satisfaction. The galaxy was changing. Humans had been kicked out of the Council for asking uncomfortable questions. Now they were showing everyone that there was a better way to live among the stars. Dr. Mina Choi brought him the best news of all. "Sir," she said, "Area has been monitoring Council communications. Several member species are asking questions about the mining operations you reported. Some are demanding investigations. Others are talking about leaving the Council entirely." President Nam smiled. Getting kicked out of the Council was supposed to be humanity's punishment. Instead, it was becoming their greatest opportunity. They were free to innovate, free to explore, and free to make friends without asking permission from species who thought they were better than everyone else. Outside his window, the newest human ship was taking off for another unexplored system. It was smaller than Council ships, but 10 times faster. It carried not weapons of conquest, but gifts of knowledge and friendship. The Council had kicked humans out, thinking they would crawl back within a year. Instead, humans were building something new, something better, and the whole galaxy was starting to notice. Intelligence Director Young Sik Lim sat in his dark office, reading messages that could change the galaxy. For 6 months, his agents had been secretly talking to species inside the Council. What they learned surprised everyone. The Council was not as strong as it looked. Many species were unhappy with the old rules. They were tired of giving most of their resources to the powerful races. They wanted to trade freely like the humans were doing with the new species. His assistant, Captain Kyung-Ho Bae, brought him another coded message. "Sir, this one came from the Varric homeworld. They are asking if humans can help them break free from Council control." Young Sik read the message carefully. The Varric were inside the Council, but they were treated badly. The old races made them pay heavy taxes on everything they sold. If they complained, Council ships would blockade their trade routes. "The Varric have good ships and brave pilots," Young Sik said. "If they joined our side, they could help us reach other unhappy species." He sent a reply through secret channels. Ambassador So Young Han would meet with Varric representatives on a neutral world outside Council space. The meeting had to be secret because helping species leave the Council was considered rebellion. 2 weeks later, Ambassador Han stood in a small space station orbiting a dead planet. She was nervous but excited. This was the first time humans would formally meet with Council members who wanted to change sides. The Varric delegation arrived in a fast ship that looked like it was built for fighting, not diplomacy. Their leader was Commander Zelkva, a tall lizard-like being with copper scales that reflected the station's lights. "Ambassador Han," he said, "my people have watched what humans do with the new species. You treat them as equals. You share your technology. You ask for fair trades, not tribute. This is very different from the Council way." Ambassador Han nodded. "We believe that all thinking species deserve respect and freedom. The Council seems to believe that only the old races deserve power." Commander Zelkva made a sound that was like laughter. "Yes, exactly. For 300 years, my people have been junior members of the Council. We do the work, but the Kalathi and Drakmor get rich from our efforts. When we ask for better treatment, they remind us that we are lucky to be members at all." "What do your people want?" Ambassador Han asked. "Freedom," Zelkva said simply. "We want to trade with whoever gives us the best deals. We want to explore space without asking permission. We want to keep most of what we earn instead of giving it away as taxes." Ambassador Han smiled. "The Human Trade Federation offers all of those things. Any species can join. Any species can leave if they want. We make decisions together, not from the top down. But leaving the Council was dangerous." Zelkva explained that when the plant-like Thylorians tried to quit the Council 20 years ago, Council battle fleets destroyed their space stations. The survivors were forced back into membership under worse conditions than before. "The Council will not let us go peacefully," Zelkva said. "They will say we are rebels and criminals. They will attack our worlds." Ambassador Han had been expecting this problem. "Commander, what if you were not alone? What if many species left at the same time? The Council cannot fight everyone at once." Over the next few months, Ambassador Han held secret meetings with representatives from dozens of species. Each meeting was dangerous. If the Council found out everyone involved could be arrested or worse, she met with the Etheri, energy beings who lived in crystal shells. They were angry because the Council banned their technology, saying it was too dangerous. They were forced to buy inferior Council equipment at high prices. She met with the Sylvani, tree-like beings who loved nature and growing things. The Council made them cut down their forests to mine metals. Many Sylvani worlds now looked like the mining planets that had gotten humans kicked out of the Council. Each species had similar stories. The Council said they were protecting galactic civilization, but really they were just keeping power for the oldest races. Everyone else was expected to work and obey. Dr. Research Director Kyung-Min Oh had been working on something that could help. He called it Operation Prometheus, named after the ancient human story about stealing fire from the gods to help people. "Ambassador," he said, "we have been recording everything about our new technologies. Medical devices that can extend lifespans by 50 years. Energy systems that provide unlimited clean power. Farming techniques that can feed twice as many people with half the work. What are you thinking?" Ambassador Han asked. "We share it all," Dr. O said. "We give every unhappy Council species the tools they need to be independent. If the Varric have our engine technology, Council ships cannot catch them. If the Sylvani have our medical technology, they will not need to buy Council medicine anymore. It was a risky plan. The Council considered human technology to be stolen property, even though humans had developed most of it themselves. Sharing it would be seen as an act of war, but Ambassador Han thought it was worth the risk. She began sending encrypted files to trusted contacts in dozens of species. The files contained blueprints, instruction manuals, and training videos. Everything a species would need to build human-level technology. The effect was amazing. Within months, Varric ships were moving faster than ever before. Sylvani farms were producing huge crops without damaging the environment. Etheri engineers were building power plants that made their worlds completely independent of Council energy systems. The Council noticed something was wrong when tax payments started dropping. Species that used to buy billions of credits worth of Council technology were suddenly buying much less. Trade ships reported that many worlds now had equipment that looked suspiciously like human designs. Intelligence Director Young Sik Lim intercepted Council communications that showed they were starting to panic. Kalathi leaders were demanding investigations. Drakmor generals wanted to send battle fleets to force rebellious species back in line. But the biggest moment came when the Council tried to punish the Varric for trading with humans. A Council fleet surrounded the main Varric trading station and demanded that all Varric ships surrender their new engines. Commander Zelkva had been waiting for this moment. His response was broadcast across the galaxy so everyone could hear it. "We refuse," he said. "The Varric people are free beings. We choose our own friends and our own trades. If the Council wants to stop us, they can try." The Council fleet commander, a arrogant Kalathi named Vorthak, laughed. "You have 40 primitive ships. We have 200 modern battleships. Surrender now and your punishment will be light." But the Varric ships were no longer primitive. They had human engines, human shields, and human weapons. When the battle started, the Council fleet was shocked at what happened. Fleet Admiral Jae Sung Kang had been waiting just outside the system with a combined human-alien force. When the Council ships attacked the Varric, he jumped in with 60 ships from 12 different species. The battle was over in less than 2 hours. Council ships were designed to look intimidating and fight primitive enemies. They were not ready for opponents who were just as advanced as they were. Half the Council fleet was destroyed. The rest ran away as fast as they could. The news spread across the galaxy in hours. For the first time in over 1,000 years, Council forces had been defeated in battle. Species that had been afraid to even complain were now talking openly about rebellion. On Earth, President Nam watched reports of celebrations on dozens of worlds. Species were tearing down Council monuments and burning Council flags. The old order was crumbling, but young Sik Lim brought him a warning. "Sir, our agents report that the Council is planning something big. They are gathering the largest battle fleet in galactic history. They plan to crush the rebellion before it spreads further." President Nam nodded. He had expected this. The Council could not afford to let the rebellion succeed. If they lost control of the galaxy, the old races would lose everything they had built over thousands of years. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Maybe 6 months," Young Sik said. "They are pulling ships from across the galaxy. When they are ready, they will attack everyone who has joined our side." President Nam looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of beings had tasted freedom for the first time in their lives. Children on Sylvani worlds were growing up with enough food. Varric traders were keeping the profits from their work. Etheri scientists were exploring the universe without limits. The Council wanted to take all of that away. They wanted to go back to the old system where power came from being born into the right species at the right time. "Then we better get ready," President Nam said. "If they want a war, we will give them one. But it will not be the war they expect." General Inho Ryu stood in the command center on Luna Base, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. The revolution had begun, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. 47 star systems declared independence from the Council on the same day. It was perfectly coordinated. Human intelligence had spent months planning every detail. While Council forces were still trying to understand what was happening, rebel fleets were already moving to protect the breakaway worlds. "Sir," communications expert Dayun Park called out, "we are getting messages from everywhere. The Corvin have seized their main spaceport. The Thylorians are blocking Council tax collectors. Even some species that were loyal to the Council are asking to join us." General Ryu smiled grimly. This was what happened when people who had been afraid for centuries suddenly realized they were not alone. The council had built their power on making everyone think resistance was impossible. Now that myth was broken, but he knew the easy part was over. The real war would start when the council's main battle fleet arrived. Intelligence reports said they were gathering over 3,000 ships from across the galaxy. It would be the largest military force ever assembled. Political theorist Byung-Ho Shin had been working on plans for what would come after the war. He believed that just defeating the council was not enough. They needed to build something better to replace it. "General," he said, "we cannot make the same mistakes the council made. If we just take power from them and keep the same system, we will become what they are now." "What do you suggest?" General Ryu asked. "A galactic cooperative," Shin said. "No permanent rulers. Every species gets equal votes regardless of how old they are or how many ships they have. Decisions are made by majority vote, but minority rights are protected. Technology and resources are shared freely." It sounded idealistic, but General Ryu had seen what humans could accomplish when they were free to innovate. Maybe idealism was exactly what the galaxy needed. Strategic analyst Yoon-ji Kim had been studying council military tactics for months. She used ARIA, the human artificial intelligence, to predict how the enemy would attack. "General," she said, "the council thinks this is a normal rebellion. They plan to attack our strongest worlds first, expecting us to surrender when we see we cannot win, but they are making assumptions based on old ways of fighting." "What do you mean?" General Ryu asked. "They expect us to protect our territory like they would, but we do not fight like them. Human tactics are based on mobility and surprise. We can be anywhere and everywhere at once." She showed him battle plans on a holographic display. Instead of big fleets protecting fixed positions, human forces would be broken into small, fast groups. They would hit council supply lines, rescue captured rebels, and disappear before the enemy could respond. "It will be like fighting smoke," Eunji said. "They will never know where we really are." The first test of this strategy came sooner than expected. A council punishment fleet attacked the Varek homeworld, expecting an easy victory. The planet's defenses looked weak, and there were no major rebel fleets in the system. But Fleet Commander Chan Wu Li had positioned his ships in the asteroid belt beyond the planet's moons. When the council fleet moved in to bombard Varek cities, human ships appeared from all directions at once. The council commander tried to form his ships into a defensive formation, but the human ships were too fast and too many. They appeared, fired, and vanished before the enemy could target them properly. Within an hour, the entire council fleet was destroyed or fleeing. News of the victory spread instantly across rebel communication networks. Logistics Commander Soo-Jin Moon had built a system that could carry messages from one side of the galaxy to the other in minutes. Every rebel world heard about the victory at the same time. The effect was electric. Species that had been afraid to rebel openly now declared their independence. More importantly, some species that were still in the council began to question their loyalty. The Zentari, one of the 3 species that humans had originally accused of exploitation, split into 2 factions. The older generation wanted to stay with the council and maintain their privileges, but younger Zentari were horrified by the evidence of what their people had done to primitive worlds. A group of young Zentari officers led by Subcommander Yilshan stole 3 council battleships and defected to the rebel side. They brought detailed information about council fleet movements and battle plans. "The old ones in my species think they can return to the way things were," Yilshan told General Ryu through a translator. "But many of us have seen the videos of the mining worlds. We cannot be part of that anymore." Each defection made the council more desperate and more dangerous. They began attacking neutral worlds that they suspected of helping the rebels. They destroyed trade stations and arrested anyone caught carrying human technology. But this only made more species angry. The council was proving everything the rebels had said about them. They were bullies who used fear to control others. The decisive moment came when the council's main battle fleet finally arrived at the Seven Suns system. This was where the rebels had built their largest shipyard and their most important command center. If the council could destroy it, they might break the rebellion's ability to fight. Fleet Commander Chan Wu Li had been waiting for this moment. He had spent months preparing the battlefield, hiding ships in nebulae and behind moons. When the council fleet arrived, they thought they were attacking a single world defended by a few hundred ships. They were wrong. Over 300 species had sent ships to defend Seven Suns. The rebel fleet included not just human vessels but ships from across the galaxy. Corvan fighters flew alongside Varric cruisers. Etheri energy beings powered Sylvani bioships. Even some species that no one had heard of before came to join the fight. The Council fleet was larger, but the rebels had advantages the enemy did not expect. Human technology had been shared with everyone, so all rebel ships were equally advanced. More importantly, the rebels were fighting for their freedom while the Council forces were fighting to maintain their privileges. The battle lasted 3 days. Space around Seven Suns filled with the wreckage of destroyed ships from both sides. But the rebels had planned for this. Every time a Council ship was destroyed, 2 more rebel ships took its place. The galaxy's oppressed species had been building and preparing for this moment. On the 3rd day, the Council fleet broke. Half their ships were destroyed. The survivors scattered in all directions, fleeing back to their homeworlds. For the first time in galactic history, the Council's military power was completely broken. General Ryu stood in the command center, watching the last Council ships disappear into hyperspace. Around him, his staff cheered and celebrated, but he felt the weight of what came next. "Dayun," he said to the communications officer, "send a message to all rebel worlds. The old Council is finished. Now we must build something better." Across the galaxy, beings who had lived their entire lives under Council rule were free for the first time. Some celebrated. Others were afraid of what would happen next. But all of them knew that everything had changed. The revolution was over. Now came the harder task of building a new kind of civilization, one based on cooperation instead of domination. And at the center of it all were the humans who had been kicked out of the Council for asking uncomfortable questions. They had asked those questions anyway. And in doing so, they had changed the rules of the galaxy forever. Reconstruction Director Mi Kyung-yu stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the new center of galactic government. Through the massive windows, she could see ships from hundreds of different species docking and departing. Each one carried delegates to the Galactic Cooperative, the organization that had replaced the old Council. It had been 1 year since the Battle of Seven Suns ended the war. Building a new government for the galaxy was harder than winning the war had been. Every species had different ideas about how things should work. Some wanted strong central control. Others wanted complete independence. Finding the middle ground required patience and compromise, but it was working. The Galactic Cooperative had no permanent rulers. Instead, every species elected representatives for 2-year terms. Decisions were made by majority vote. But the rights of minority species were protected by a constitution based on human democratic principles, but adapted for alien cultures. Cultural Ambassador Sang-wook Choi had created the Interspecies Exchange Program, which let young beings from different worlds spend time learning about other cultures. A Corvan student might study art on a Sylvani world, while an Etheri researcher could learn about human history on Earth. The results were amazing. Species that had never talked to each other before the war were now close friends. Trade flourished as barriers disappeared. Most importantly, the exploitation that had started the whole conflict was ending. The mining worlds that had suffered under Council rule were now free. The children who had worked in dark tunnels were in schools instead. Their parents had jobs that paid fair wages. The rare metal still came out of the ground, but now the profits stayed on the worlds where the work was done. Elder statesman Hyun-woo Kim, the ambassador who had first brought evidence of Council crimes, served as the first speaker of the Galactic Cooperative. It was a rotating position that changed every 6 months, ensuring that no one person or species could accumulate too much power. "Mi-kyung," he said, joining her at the observation window. "Do you remember what the Council chamber looked like? All those floating seats arranged in circles, with the most powerful species at the center and everyone else pushed to the edges?" Mi-kyung nodded. She had visited the old chamber once before the war. It had been designed to make most delegates feel small and unimportant. "Look at our chamber," Hyun-woo said, pointing to the great hall below them. "Every delegate sits at the same level. The speaking platform moves around so that everyone gets a chance to address the assembly from the center. No one is more important than anyone else." It was a simple change, but it made a huge difference. In the old Council, junior species rarely spoke because they felt their voices did not matter. In the cooperative, even the newest members spoke up regularly with ideas and concerns. Historian Jin A. Lim had been documenting all the changes for future generations. Her reports showed remarkable progress across the galaxy. "Ambassador," she said, showing them her latest findings, "life expectancy has increased by an average of 40% across all species. Interstellar wars have dropped to almost zero. Scientific discoveries are happening 3 times faster than before the cooperative was formed. The reasons were clear. When species were not wasting resources fighting each other or paying tribute to powerful overlords, they could focus on improving life for their people. When scientists could share information freely instead of keeping secrets, they solved problems much faster. Art and culture were flourishing too. The old council had restricted cultural exchange, saying it was important to preserve racial purity. The cooperative encouraged mixing and sharing. New forms of music combined human instruments with Corvan vocal techniques and etheri harmonic crystals. Architecture blended styles from dozens of worlds, creating buildings that were both beautiful and practical. But perhaps the most important change was in how conflicts were resolved. The old council had settled disputes through intimidation and force. The stronger species always won, regardless of who was right. The cooperative used mediation and compromise instead. When the Thylorians and the Corvan had a dispute over trading rights in a border system, both sides expected a long, bitter fight. Instead, cooperative mediators helped them find a solution that benefited everyone. The system became a joint trading hub that made both species richer than they would have been if either had controlled it alone. Museum director Quan Ho Bei had created a memorial to the old system on Earth. It displayed artifacts from the Council era alongside testimonies from beings who had lived under Council rule. School children from across the galaxy came to visit and learn about the past. One day, a young etheri named Zilvex asked him a question that had become common among the younger generation. "Director Bay," she said, her crystal shell glowing with curiosity, "why did the old council think humans were dangerous? The history files say they were peaceful traders who just wanted fair treatment for everyone." Quan Ho smiled. This was his favorite question to answer because it got to the heart of why the revolution had succeeded. "They were not dangerous in the way the council meant," he said. "Humans did not have the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. But they had something the old races had forgotten about." "What was that?" Silvex asked. "They believed that all thinking beings deserved freedom, dignity, and opportunity," Quan Ho explained. "The old powers called that dangerous because it threatened their control. They were right to be afraid. Those ideas were dangerous to oppression, tyranny, and inequality." Captain Bo-Ram Lee, now an elderly woman, often visited the memorial. She had been the intelligence officer who first documented council crimes all those years ago. Her discovery had started the chain of events that changed the galaxy. Sometimes young visitors asked her if she regretted starting the war. So many ships had been destroyed. So many beings had died in the fighting. "I regret the violence," she always told them. "But I do not regret exposing the truth. The children working in those mines deserved better. Every being in the galaxy deserved better than the system the council had built." She would point to the newest exhibits in the museum, which showed what those mining worlds looked like now. Schools and hospitals had replaced the slave barracks. Parks and playgrounds stood where the mining pits used to be. The children who had once worked in darkness were now learning to read, to think, and to dream of futures beyond their home worlds. As Captain Lee walked through the memorial one last time, she thought about how strange life could be. Humans had been kicked out of the council for asking uncomfortable questions about justice and equality. The council leaders had expected them to give up and go away quietly. Instead, humans had asked those questions anyway. They had found others who cared about the same things. Together, they had built something better than what had come before. The Galactic Council was gone, remembered now only in museums and history books. In its place stood the Galactic Cooperative, an organization based on the radical idea that all thinking beings were equal partners in the grand adventure of exploring the universe. Outside the memorial, ships from hundreds of worlds continued their peaceful journeys between the stars. Trade flowed freely. Information was shared openly. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together on projects that benefited everyone. The rules of the galaxy had changed. Instead of the strong dominating the weak, cooperation was stronger than conquest. Instead of hoarding knowledge and resources, sharing made everyone richer. Instead of permanent hierarchies based on age and power, Every being had the chance to rise as high as their talents and efforts could take them. And it had all started because some humans got kicked out of the council for caring too much about people they had never met, on worlds they had never visited, who could not possibly help them in return. The old council had called that foolish idealism. History had proven it was the foundation of a better galaxy.